post-game reaction.
Oh, hell yeah.
This is Dubs OT.
Can't wait.
With John Dickinson.
Hey, JD, what you up to, sugar? Long time no talk to.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live at KNBR.com and on the KNBR app.
Rimming it out, and Rajemski the rebound.
There's some time to work with. You need some threes. That would be nice.
Will Richard three. He obliges.
It's two-possession game.
What an NBA debut as a starter for Will Richard. 28.
And Will Richard would end up with 30 in his first NBA start. Warriors, though, lose. No Steph Curry, no Jimmy Butler, no Draymond Green. Pretty good first half for the Dubs and a great first quarter for Golden State, playing shorthanded in Sacramento, but ultimately too many turnovers, too many fouls, and not enough execution down the stretch defensively or offensively, and the Warriors find themselves taking an L in Sacramento against a Kings team, also missing three of their starters, but the Warriors choosing to let Steph Curry rest up with the illness that he's been dealing with over the course of the last week. Draymond Green dealing with a little bit of a rib issue, so he was out in the back for Jimmy Butler III. He ends up sitting out in this one. We're here to talk about it. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. 808 KNBR, the number, 415-808-5627, as we do come to you from the cell block inside Golden One Center here in Sacramento tonight. So Warriors now 5-4 on the season. They lose the second of the back-to-back. And again, a lot of positive things from this game, honestly, but also I think some frustrating things as well from this game, because the Warriors really, truly did have an opportunity to win this game had they been able to be just a little bit more buttoned up, even with the starting lineup that they deployed in this game of Brandon Pajemski, Moses Moody, Will Richard, Jonathan Kuminga, and Quentin Post. So a lot of good in this game from Will Richard, first and foremost. He winds up leading the Warriors in scoring tonight with 30 points on 10 of 15 shooting, 5 of 8 from 3, had 7 boards, 3 assists. He was back cutting, especially earlier in the game. And I think you could make the case that right off the top, and one of the things I do want to get into here on the show is just kind of, yes, they lose the game, and there are reasons why the Warriors lost this game. Turnovers, the offense kind of going to hell for the most part in the second half after a pretty efficient first half and especially first quarter. But, I mean, Will Richard, I think, has got to be the number one most positive takeaway, because Will Richard showed the ability on a night where the Warriors are looking for guys who can score the basketball to do it, and do it in an efficient, team-oriented manner. And also, I think he's shown in the early part of the year that he has the ability to fit in terms of being a role player that can almost play with any different combination, including the veterans. So filing away, I think, off the top, this is a big-time night where I think Will Richard probably gained the most in terms of his NBA career moving forward, and just even his rookie season with the Warriors here moving forward as well. So I want to make sure we note that, and we'll get into it at 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. There was a lot of good and bad from both Jonathan Kuminga in this game tonight and Brandon Pajemski. Kuminga getting an opportunity to kind of stretch his legs out a little bit, play a little bit more of the style that Kuminga has wanted to play, a little bit more of that Minnesota series style Kuminga in this one. But he got in foul trouble. It wasn't the most efficient Kuminga game as the game went on. And, he did have 9 boards. He did also have 5 turnovers. And at one point, I think he had 6. They took one away. I think maybe a bad pass they turned into a ball that should have been caught. So he ends up with 5 turnovers in the game tonight. So there were points in which he looked unstoppable early in the game. There were points where he looked like a young player that is trying to grow and you'll figure out how to be a potential future number one option on a night where he gets an opportunity to truly, I think, be the Warriors' number one option, even though he ended up being their third leading scorer in this game, because Moses Moody, the other big takeaway, was outstanding tonight. Defensively, he did have a couple of turnovers as well, but he efficiently shot the three ball in this game. Did Moses Moody, and the Warriors really needed it. Again, Moody's game is the type of game to where you couple it with a game like he had last night. He knocked the rust off last week after a poor performance in his initial game against Portland, and then ends up with really back-to-back quality positive games. And I think Moses Moody's another player that's, now that he's back from this injury and continuing to kind of shake off some of the slow start due to the injury, he's somebody that I think you feel really good about moving forward when Steph and Jimmy and Draymond are all back out there together and playing. So some good on that front for Moses Moody. Moody and Richard, I think, were just the positives tonight. I think Kuminga and Podziemski together were some positive. I mean, Podziemski ended up with 4 turnovers. He had a couple of turnovers late. He had an awful throwaway turnover as the Kings were kind of making their run and flipping the game. But he also ended up with 14, 9, and 9 in the game as well. So darn near a triple-double for Podziemski. So I think Kuminga and Podziemski kind of go in there was a lot of good, but also some bad, while I think Richard and Moody go into the good category. It ended up being too much DeRozan. It ended up being a lot of Russell Westbrook, who ended up with a triple-double himself, 23 points. And Westbrook was efficient. I mean, that's the kind of Russell Westbrook is a future Hall of Famer game. When he plays the way he did tonight and can shoot the basketball relatively efficiently, I mean, those are the quintessential Russell Westbrook games. There were some bad stuff there from Westbrook at times. You're always going to get some wild turnovers, but he truly gave Sacramento an opportunity to win. They ended up with all 5 of their starters in double figures. Malik Monk's been a thorn in the side of the Warriors over the time that he's been with Sacramento. He ended up with 21, and Westbrook hit some big threes in this game that I thought kept the Kings within striking distance to where they were only down 5 at halftime. That's the one big takeaway, and we'll get into more details as far as the first half goes. But the big takeaway for me is the Warriors, even with the lineup that they put out there, probably should have been up more than just 5 at halftime, considering how well they played and how poorly they were making Sacramento play in that game. So that's kind of another takeaway as it relates to all of that. So we'll get into it. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. It is Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader from Sacramento. And the Kings beat the Warriors on a night where both teams down 3 starters, and the Warriors playing without Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green. Kings 121, Warriors 116. So, yeah, biggest takeaway in terms of the net positive. I'm always a little reluctant on nights like tonight to get too negative because, again, even on with players like Podziemski and Kuminga, it's a scenario where they're being asked to do more than they typically are being asked to do on a normal night. So you have to kind of expect some productive numbers, but also some individual negative plays. And, the Kuminga play late where he had an open 3 that he didn't take. I can understand not taking it after the Warriors had bounced back. They're down 3 at this point. And it wasn't a great second half overall for Kuminga. And the foul trouble, I think, maybe plagued a little bit of that. But I think the play that he'd want to have back, he doesn't take the 3. He drives. He has a layup. He doesn't really fully realize he's got the layup, and then he turns and shoots a fadeaway and ends up missing it in a moment where if the Warriors go down and get a dunk there, they're within 1, and they're in a spot where they can get a stop and potentially win the game in that situation. So some good, some bad there, and we'll get into all of it. We'll kind of run through the game here coming up in just a moment. But we do want to get to the phones as we do have people that want to chat here to begin the show. We'll start it off tonight here on Dubs OT with Adam in San Jose on the Sports Leader. What's going on, Adam?
Hey, JD, how you doing? I think thus far it seems that Al Horford is a major downgrade from Kevon Looney. I mean, he just looks absolutely terrible on both sides of the ball through the first 9 games of the season. And it really makes you realize why no other team pursued him during that 2-month drama, Jonathan Kuminga drama. My next point is these turnovers, game after game, continue to haunt us year after year, and it doesn't help with the white Shohei Ohtani. He just turns the ball over at the most crucial moments of the game. He drives into the paint, hops up like a bunny and doesn't have an outlet, doesn't know where to go, takes a wild shot, and it doesn't go in. And then my final point is Will Richard looks like an all-around player who could really play both sides of the ball. I'd really like to see him start alongside Steph and bench Pajemski and just see how that lineup with Steph, Will Richard, Draymond, Jimmy, and Kuminga goes.
Couple of things. Give me that lineup one more time, Adam. Give me that lineup that you just mentioned one more time. I want to make sure I have it here.
Sorry, he just hung up, but he said Curry, Will Richard, Kuminga, Butler, Draymond.
Okay, and so a smaller lineup: Curry, Richard, Kuminga, Butler, Kuminga. All right, I'm gonna note that one. Draymond. Yeah, I think if anybody's gonna get that spot in that lineup in particular, it's probably going to be Moses Moody. I think Moses Moody probably calls dibs on that lineup if the Warriors do go small. I wanted to react though first to just the original point, and I wanted to let Adam make the point. I know people in the chat are like, JD, what the heck? You're running down this list of things. You know, the young players. You got Richard and Moody. You got Kuminga and Pajemski, kind of similar, but the Warriors got nothing tonight. Nothing tonight from the center spot. Like literally, they got nothing tonight from the center spot. Quentin Post and Al Horford were 0 for 13 and 0 for 10 from 3. Both of them combined scored 0 points. Trace Jackson Davis, in his 9 minutes, scored 2 points. So they got 2 points tonight from the center position. Al Horford has had one good game. I think we are starting to get to the point where it's fair to have some concern about Al Horford and his ability. This has gone, I think, to this point beyond new team trying to fit in and a little bit uncomfortable. Like Al Horford, his number one skill is the ability to knock down the 3-point shot. And then it's defend, and you can run some offense through them and all those things. Now, I will say, I do think among the centers the Warriors had active tonight, I think Horford, even with his game, was the most effective and probably the player that should have been out there at the end if the Warriors weren't going to just completely go centerless. But they've got to get more from Al Horford. Point blank, bottom line, end of story. 0 for 8 is not going to cut it. And an 0 for 7 for 3, and he's getting open looks, especially in the fourth quarter of a lot of these games. And he was brought in to be the big man in many ways that the Warriors have lacked over the course of the last couple of years. And to this point, there's been the one game against Denver that he helped them win. And every other game that he's played in, he has been a big-time negative. Now, the plus-minus tonight, he was only a -3, but you can't have an 0 for 8 from somebody that you're counting on in an attempt to try and upgrade at that position. And if the Warriors get anything out of the center spot tonight, they might have been up 16, 18 points in the first half and could have flipped Golden One Center into their house with the Kings potentially getting booed in their own building, but they were unable to do it. Turnovers wind up being the story. The Warriors limited the turnovers early in the game. They limited them in the first half, but then in the third quarter, again, it was 7 turnovers in the first half. They had 8 in the third quarter, so they end up with 18 on the night, and so 11 of them in the second half. They did have the 3 in the fourth quarter, but just too many turnovers, and it winds up being the points off the turnovers as well when you look at this thing, and it ends up 30-11 ends up being the difference. So if you're looking at the game specifically and saying, all right, how did the Warriors lose this game? I think turnovers have to be at the top of the list. And anytime you talk about turnovers, it's who are the culprits, and that's where you go. Kuminga 5 turnovers, Podziemski 4 turnovers. Moses Moody, for as well as he played, did have 3 turnovers, but he ends up with 28 points. And so those were the guys. Pat Spencer had a couple. Tonight was not a Pat Spencer night, but somebody's got to be the backup point guard if you don't have Steph, and Podziemski's going to step in and start. Again, if this is a night where DeAnthony Melton is around, then this is a night where DeAnthony Melton and Podziemski are probably splitting those minutes, and Melton's on the floor not only in the Pat Spencer minutes, which ended up being about 17, but he probably takes some of Podziemski's 31 to boot in this, and maybe it's more of a 24-24 kind of a split at the point guard department. And I think if you've got a healthy and effective DeAnthony Melton, he probably helps you limit some of the Pods mistakes from this game, and also not have to play Pat Spencer, who, again, played well last night, and Spencer in small doses can potentially play well. But tonight, overall was not Pat Spencer's night, as he ended up being a -19. And tonight was not really a night for GP2, who continues to struggle in a major way at -12 overall. So, yeah, Melton on the way as he continues to rehab and get back from the knee injury. We'll see what winds up happening. I know Seth Curry's name popped up in the chat there. But I think, again, story of the game in terms of the way the Warriors played and the specific reasons as to, okay, well, why do you lose this game? It comes down to the turnovers, and in particular the third quarter turnovers, where the Warriors, it was their lone quarter where they ended up under 30 points for the game. They go 32 in the first, 30 in the second. They had 31 in the fourth, but they limited their ability to get a shot effectively against a Kings team that really was not playing all that well defensively. It wasn't like they were putting an imprint on the game and forcing a lot of these turnovers. So you look at it, it's an area where the Warriors, whether it's Steph and Draymond on some nights, whether it's Kuminga and Podziemski on nights where Steph and Draymond are not out there, the turnovers were certainly costly in this one. So 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. Let's go ahead and take a quick timeout here, Kyle. We'll come back. We'll reset. We do have a couple of phone lines open. If you want to jump in and join the conversation on the phone lines as well, we can do that. Your big picture takeaway, the biggest bright spots, the most concerning thing. I found myself channeling Don Nelson tonight, the former Warriors head coach, a little bit, because there's a line that Nelly used to have that rang true tonight as I was watching this game continue to unfold. I think there were a lot of players on the floor, really for both sides, but in particular for the Warriors, that made this old Don Nelson saying pop into my head. And so we'll get into that coming up next as well. We'll have sounds of Dubs OT, and we'll get into the YouTube chat right here off the top. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. Warriors lose to the Kings 121-116. We're here. We're talking about it. Quick break, and then we are going to continue live here on the Sports Leader.
Live from downtown.
Hurry, way downtown. Bang!
This is Dubs OT with John Dickinson on the Sports Leader. Streaming live at KNBR.com and on the KNBR app.
Richard 3! And the Dubs take the lead!
Here they come. Here, Dub Nation here. Golden One Center.
From up 13 to down 9 to back up 1 on an 11-2 run.
Yeah, that in the fourth quarter, Warriors up 103-102 at that point, but then too much Russell Westbrook and too much DeMar DeRozan. Dennis Schroeder got into the act for Sacramento. Not a big night for Schroeder overall, but Schroeder hit a couple of big daggers against the Warriors. We have seen that before from both Schroeder and DeMar DeRozan throughout the course of their careers. The Warriors allowed for the game to get to that point. Too many turnovers, a lot of young player mistakes along the way, and the Dubs lose this one 121-116 in Sacramento. We're back here. It's Dubs OT with JD on the Sports Leader. 808 KNBR. We got Kyle Haar in our San Francisco studios. 415-808-5627. The Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line is open as well. And 408 trying to channel which Don Nelson phrase, Kyle Haar, that I was thinking, which saying, and the 408 with a good guess, although not exactly where I was going, although I think a shot created must be taken, which is that is definitely a Nellyism, and there was a little of that tonight from a couple of the Warriors. Moses Moody had a sequence there where he passed up a three and then allowed himself to be defended, and then ended up forcing one of his turnovers. Just a brutal sequence. Podziemski has had continually scenarios there where he's got shots that are right there for him, and he gets kind of caught in between. We've talked about it. And then Kuminga at the end, I think I was watching back during the break, 117-114 in the closing 25 seconds of this one. He ends up putting himself in a spot where he gets to the cup after turning down the three. I'm okay with him turning down the three in that situation, even with the Warriors down three, but he absolutely lost DeRozan on that play, and unable to recognize the fact that he had dropped DeRozan to the ground to kind of lean in and be able to lay it up at that point. Again, a young player type of a mistake, but a mistake that ultimately proves to be costly in this one as the Warriors take the L to drop themselves to 5-4. One other quick note before we get into some Kyle's clicks, and then we'll kind of run through the game and more texts to get to as well in the Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line. The overall record now is 5-4 for the Warriors, and I think this is another issue about losing the Milwaukee game and losing the Indiana game, because now you look up and you're 5-4 and you're kind of middle of the pack in the Western Conference, and the injuries and the rest nights and all those things are piling up now. And if you go beat Milwaukee and you go beat Indiana when you have everybody and those teams are shorthanded, as they were when the Warriors played them last week, you can take an L in a game like tonight, and it doesn't feel like it's really hurting you. To me, the loss tonight is as much about those other losses as it is about the loss tonight. And kind of relating that back to the old Don Nelson phrase, the one that I was thinking of is Nelly, who would often say, and sometimes it would be, some players are just good enough to get you beat. Sometimes some players are just good enough to get you beat. And I think, unfortunately, because of where the Warriors were at in terms of all those young players playing, they played their best. There was a lot of good, but ultimately the Warriors put a team of players out there tonight. I think there's some players on the Kings that are that way on a lot of nights as well. But the Kings, even with the guys that they had out, had more players by a significant margin that have done some stuff in their NBA career that you can lean on once the game gets to a point where it's going to come down to who can execute better in a fourth quarter. And even guys that over the course of their careers have not necessarily been winners at the highest of the high levels. You still have a Russell Westbrook, who's a future Hall of Famer, a DeMar DeRozan, who's an elite fourth quarter scorer throughout the course of his career. And even a guy like Malik Monk has been a thorn in the Warriors side, as has been Dennis Schroeder as well. So just good enough to get you beat, I thought was kind of the story of the night, as often can be and will be the story of the night when you're playing as many young players as the Warriors were. But it does sting a little bit because the game was winnable. The game was winnable. And, the Warriors had played so well early in the game. Kuminga, we talked about him being able to expand his game a little bit. Will Richard hit a couple of threes and 8 quick points en route to 30. The Warriors were up 21-11 in this game. And they were moving the ball, assists, leading by, good defense. I thought they were flying around defensively. They were rebounding the ball early in the game, and they were just clicking on all cylinders, playing hard, moving the ball. Kuminga was looking to get others involved, and I'm interested to, if Kuminga addresses maybe the fact that did the foul trouble impact him in some way, as it maybe made for him to be a little bit less aggressive in terms of attacking. I know he was probably going to play most of, if not the whole fourth quarter, and wound up picking up that 5th foul early. So Kerr had to go away from him there for about 4 minutes. And then the Warriors made a run, but then they lost the lead. And then it was time to have Kuminga come back. It was right in that stretch. We played the highlight of Will Richard's 3 after the Warriors had gotten down to put them back ahead. But yeah, a lot of really good stuff for the Warriors in the first half. Although the game to me started to turn toward the end of the second quarter. The Kings outscored the Warriors in the final 2 minutes, 7-3. It was only a 5-point game. Again, Westbrook was hitting some threes, and the fouls, couple of fouls to begin the third quarter, and the Warriors were in the bonus within the first couple of minutes of the quarter. And the Kings end up 14 for 18 at the free throw line in the third quarter. So 14 of Sacramento's 35 points in the quarter came at the free throw line. A lot of the momentum that the Warriors had built up offensively was gone. The rhythm was gone because the game had slowed down, and then the Warriors were turning the ball over at an alarming rate. We talked about the 8 turnovers in that quarter alone after just 7 in the first half. And the story of the game ends up being that quarter. 35-23 in favor of Sacramento. It was kind of back and forth in the fourth. The Warriors ended up down 9 and then back up by a point. Kings go on another run at that point, and then the Warriors just kind of hanging around, but not enough execution down the stretch here. And we talked about the play at the end and some of the bad turnovers at different points in the game from not only Brandon Pajemski, but Jonathan Kuminga as well. So 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. That is the number to jump in and join the conversation here as well. As the Warriors lose to the Kings, 805 chiming in. Light the beam, JD. Light the beam. They did, in fact, light the beam tonight inside Golden One Center. And the Kings playing a little bit better, I suppose, after their 1-4 start. I think they've won 2 of their last 3 games, but again, push comes to shove. Biggest bright spots of the night for me, Will Richard and Moses Moody. Again, a lot of ups and downs, I thought, from both Kuminga and Brandon Pajemski in this game. And then Al Horford, nothing from the center position for the Warriors. It's time to start to be concerned about Al Horford because he's not playing in back-to-backs. They're trying to limit his minutes to around 20 to keep him effective, but he has got to hit shots. And he is 5 for 24 to begin his Warriors tenure, 0 for 7 again tonight. And if the Warriors get anything at all from the center spot tonight, even just a couple of makes, I think we might be talking about a win that the Warriors, typically we go back and forth on this all the time. Can the Warriors young players stand alone when the veteran players either don't have it on a given night or are on these nights where the Warriors are going to have to give the veterans a night off? And my answer has always been, I don't think that this team is good enough in terms of those young players to be able to carry. And a night like tonight's a bit of an extreme, although, again, this game was winnable because of the opponent they were playing. And it's not exactly like the Kings have been some world beaters here to begin the season. I think they're in store for probably a very, very disappointing season. And the sense I get from even being in Sacramento is everybody in Sacramento knows it. Like, nobody's even trying to fake like they think this team can actually be good. But I think when you look at this from a Warriors standpoint, they had an opportunity to win this game, and it does now feel with this team at 5-4 a lot like it's felt the last couple of years, where you don't want to wind up in a position where you're basically a 500 play-in type team all the way up until, say, the end of February post All-Star break, and then you feel like you have to get on this massive run and, go all out down the stretch of the season to get hot and be ready to go for the playoffs, because I think it proved last year and would prove again to be too taxing as it relates to being ready to go through not just a 1 or a 2 round gauntlet in an NBA playoff, but to be through a full 4 round level of contention to be able to try and roll through. So 808 KNBR. Let's get to the chat. Let's get Kyle's clicks here. We appreciate everybody. Robert Brown, Warriors are a lot closer to 7-10 than they are to 1-4 in terms of seeding in the West. Yeah, and let's remember, they were 7 last year. And again, they were, the thought though was that this team was 23-8 with Jimmy Butler over the final 31 games, and that with Horford being added and with the Anthony Melton being added, that this team would have enough to be able to not play at a 23-8 level. I think that's silly. Not play at a 23-8 level for a full season, but be able to play closer to that level than the 500 level that they had basically been at in the last couple of years before the Jimmy Butler trade, for the most part. But I'm with you, Robert. To me, there is not enough that it feels like it's the same old Warriors to me now. It feels like this team that's going to just kind of be a couple of games above 500, and then maybe they end up getting on a run if they have all the, everything fall into place for them down the stretch. And then where is that going to leave them? Because you start to look around the Western Conference, and there are some really good teams that are, we know Oklahoma City, who, by the way, got beat tonight by Portland in Portland. So the first loss for OKC comes at the hands of the Trailblazers, that young, energetic, team with a lot of size and a lot of length that we saw, be a handful for the Warriors a couple of weeks back in Portland. But, OKC is they're crushing it. The Rockets have won 5 in a row after they were 0-2. The Lakers were supposed to stink without, LeBron here to begin the season, and they've played some games without Luka, and they've been able to win. They're 7-2, and the Warriors were one of the two that was able to beat them. Denver's 5-2, even with the Warriors beating them. San Antonio got off to a 5-0 start. Now they've dropped a couple of games. Portland is a team that I think is on the come, as we've discussed. And then Minnesota hasn't really gotten it going yet, with Anthony Edwards in and out of the lineup. And, the Warriors find themselves right now, the Clippers haven't gotten it going yet. They look like a little bit more of an older team, but it definitely, to that point, does feel to me like the Warriors are closer to a play-in team as things currently stand right now than they are to being a top 4 team. Now, is there a middle ground? Maybe they're not. Maybe they're better than 7-10, but they're not 1-4. Can they be in that 5-6 range and have things clicking? I think that remains to be seen. But let's make no mistake, the Warriors believe that they built this team this season to be able to withstand nights like tonight, and to be able to have enough in other places on the roster to win games like the game in Milwaukee and Indiana. And to this point, they haven't had it. And so we have to see how this all, shakes out here moving forward. But right now, this team is not. And again, it's November 5th, for crying out loud. We've got 5 months, 5.5 months almost until the end of the regular season. There is plenty of time for this to change, but I just think the Warriors are going to find themselves stuck in a similar malaise, unfortunately, to that we've seen over these last couple of years. All right, good start here from Robert Brown. Digum 117. We'll try to move more quickly through these. Here's my problem. I don't need my center to score from three. I need him to rebound and protect the paint. Well, a lot of people feel that way, Digum. A lot of people feel that way. And Post did an okay job. He had a couple of blocks tonight. Quentin Post did. He had a couple of rebounds in his time, but Quentin Post and Al Horford specifically are out there to make threes. Like, their ability to play on this Warriors team is first and foremost about their ability to knock down the three ball. That is the best skill that both of those players possess. And look, Horford's been a great defender in his time. Horford can be a facilitator, I think, even to a greater extent than he was with Boston now joining this Warriors team. But the reality is those two guys are on the team to knock down the three ball, to stretch the floor, to be a style of player that the Warriors have not had in the time that they've been the Steph Curry, basically Draymond Green era. And so you have to play to your greatest skills. And if Al Horford was knocking down shots at a 40% clip from three instead of a 20% clip from three to begin the year, we'd be having a little bit of a different conversation. We'd be probably talking about a 7-2 team as opposed to a 5-4 team, if that was the case. But again, a lot of people feel that way. LM Dub's dream of a stretch five only looks good on paper. In reality, uneven results. Bielitsa, Saric, JaMychal Green, and so far Horford. Yeah. And I'm not ready to put Horford in that category yet. But the reality is, again, I don't think Horford's cooked necessarily. I don't think we know that yet. He's missed a couple of games, and also you do get a handful of games to try and work out some of the struggles, but I think he will come around. But it hasn't just been the shooting. It hasn't just been the shooting for Horford. The defense hasn't really been there. He's tried to rebound, but been a little bit he's been a little slow, I think, at times defensively. So, look, they went in on that. They believed that was going to give them some more positional versatility. And to this point, again, it's still early in the season, but there's no way to say it has not worked to this point. And it has been a net negative other than the one Denver game. He was excellent in that game, and he made shots in that game. That is the big difference. And he, closed the game with that big lineup that everybody thought was going to be the new death lineup. And lineups, I think it's played about 4 minutes together since. So that was a little bit premature. But they got to get more out of Horford. They have to get more out of Al Horford. And I do think we're at a point now where it is fair to be concerned. It is fair to be concerned. May wind up being nothing, but it is fair to be concerned about the way that he's played, and in particular shot the basketball. Rich Ray, outside of Spencer shooting us out of it in the third and Horford in the fourth, the youngsters looked reasonably good. I do think that is a bright spot tonight. Moody, excellent. Will Richard, spectacular in his first career start. And look, Moody's going to play a ton. Moody is going to play a ton. And I think eventually be a starter for this Warriors team. I know we were talking lineups a little bit earlier, and everybody wants Moody to start. It's funny. Everybody has said, and the Warriors have played 9 games now, Kyle, but help me out with this, because every night we get the so-and-so needs to start over Pajemski. Will Richard needs to start over Pajemski tonight. It's been Moses Moody needs to start over Pajemski. Pajemski's only started half the games. So everyone wants to like put their guy in for Pajemski. Pajemski hasn't even started half these games. Before tonight, it was 4-4 before tonight. Of course, he's going to start tonight because the Warriors don't have anything else resembling a point guard besides Brandon Pajemski, on the team right now with Stephen Curry out due to the illness. So, but yeah, I think overall, Moody is eventually going to start. I think you could start Moody. I think you could start Moody in Kuminga's spot eventually. I also think you can start a lineup with Moody in the backcourt as the point of attack defender and Steph Curry out there as well with Jimmy and Kuminga and Draymond. I think that could be a start. But all of the lineups in which Moody starts are the smaller lineups because you still want to have Draymond out there. You either are going to want to have Kuminga out there with Draymond and Jimmy, or you're going to have Draymond and Jimmy out there as well. So it's not going to be Steph, Moody, Jimmy, Draymond, and a center. I mean, I guess it could be Steph, Moody, Jimmy, Draymond, and a center, but then Kuminga's not going to start. So to that point, it winds up being Moody who takes Kuminga's spot in the starting lineup. So it is a little bit trickier if you are going to remain committed to Kuminga being a starter. It is a little bit trickier than meets the eye. But yeah, everybody wants Pajemski's spot. Pajemski hasn't even been starting half of these games. And tonight it was Will Richard. Mickey D, Moody's contract looking like a bargain. Absolutely. And I think, that they found some really nice middle ground on Moses Moody, where I think it went at the moment in which they signed him to the 3-year, $39 million contract extension last year. It looked like a deal initially because Moody had played so little. It looked like it was going to be a deal that, wow, this is a really favorable deal for this is a favorable deal for Moody. That's a lot for Moses Moody, I think, is the original thought. But you look at the player that he is, if he's going to be anything close to the player we've seen him be in the games where he's played well last night, tonight, to varying degrees, the game against Memphis, then his contract absolutely will be a bargain, Mickey D. If a 3-and-D wing in the NBA that's a starter and a closer, $13 million a year is that's nothing for that type of a player at this particular point. Joke's on you, man. We couldn't play one vet of the three. It's all or nothing with this team. It's super tilted to only serve Steph and only serve vets. There's no in between, no creator like Monk, just to have a change. That is part of, and I'm kind of with you. Like I was talking to our buddy Austin Scott as we were driving from the Bay to Sacramento tonight for the game. And I was saying, man, even Draymond tonight, I think if he could play, would give them enough intensity defensively to where, and connectivity offensively, because he knows the system so well, to where I think it would put them over the top. I did not think, even with Sabonis out, even with Levine out, I was kind of feeling like the Kings were going to have enough unless the Warriors were just awesome. And the Warriors were pretty awesome the first quarter and a half to a point, and the Kings looked awful, really, and the Warriors were kind of making them look awful. But I had a similar thought, but honestly, if Steph's not gonna go and Jimmy's not gonna go, it just makes sense to have Draymond sit out as well. And he's been dealing with the rib, and he was in the building tonight. So I get it. And that's sort of my big takeaway from the last couple of days is just, man, we're already to the point. It hits fast, right? They win the first game at LA. They win the second game against Denver. Third game's a schedule loss. They didn't look good in Portland. And it winds up being, that type of a all right, young team, all that. And then they come back, they get to 4-1 at home, they beat the Clippers, and you're thinking, wow, all right, how far can the Warriors ride this thing? But here we are now, 4 games removed from that, and it's just the same old regular season, 82-game grind. Can't make it through, can't stay focused, don't have the energy, gonna get hurt, need to miss time, have to take a rest, load manage, maintenance. It's just, the Warriors, for all of the times, and maybe I'm proven wrong on this, but for all the times they would say they built this roster in a way that it was good for the long haul, we're seeing early that they really, they don't have the roster that I think they have in terms of the depth to be able to win a lot of these games. And again, there's time for it to change, but it just feels like they are still so dependent on Steph and Draymond and Jimmy being out there to set the tone, and they just don't have near enough on the nights where they don't have all those guys. And so I'm kind of with you, jokes on you, although I understand it. And it maybe if they were able to have Jimmy or Draymond, even Draymond out there, because it sounds like he was maybe the closest to being able to play in this game, it could have made all the difference in the world, just as another ball handler, just as another facilitator, just as another defender. So yeah, I think it's unfortunate, but it truly is it's the reality of where things are right now. Rebel to Sounds, did anybody notice on that last play, Kuminga had a wide open dunk and went for a turnaround fadeaway shot? Oh yeah, Rebel, we were talking about it. We've talked about it a couple of times here to begin the show. I mean, Kuminga didn't realize it. I credited Kuminga for not taking the three, even though the clock was winding down. I think that, and he had taken a three prior to that on a possession prior to that. I thought it was a quick three. And a bad three from up top at the top of the key. But yeah, he beat DeRozan, and DeRozan was on the ground, and it's just lack of a young player awareness to realize that he could have gone up and just set that ball right in the basket, if not dunked it. But no, he went to the shot that he's very comfortable with, maybe a little too comfortable with. We saw a couple of those tonight. You knew you were going to see some of the pull-up jumpers, the midi. At one point he drew a foul, faking a midi and then going up, and then he got a foul. But he had DeRozan on the ground, and everybody could see it. And that's a play where if he can go up and take the two in that situation, maybe the Warriors end up with a spot, with a chance to be able to have another possession to either tie or potentially win the game in the closing seconds. But alas, Kuminga, I thought was really good early as the game went on. The foul trouble, the turnovers, a few more of the bad shots wound up being kind of a mixed bag. But again, what are you going to do on a night like tonight? I mean, he needs to be out there. It's why you in part brought him back, and you're giving him the opportunity to stretch his legs out a little bit with the remainder of this Warriors team out, basically the key cogs out for this one. Let's continue here. One more, Rusty Nail. I was thinking about how much better this team would be with just a Vlade Divac. So just an excellent passing post up kind of a center. I mean, Vlade shot some outside shots too. But I mean, Andrew Bogut, a little bit like Vlade Divac in terms of throwing the ball down to him and being able to, dribble handoff game and being able to kind of run offense through him. But I mean, those guys just aren't readily available. I mean, Vlade Divac is probably a top 5 passing center of all time. I mean, that's something, different era. Bennett Roth, Joe Klein would work. Joe Klein. Oh, my goodness. That's a name I haven't heard in a long, long time. Joe Klein. All right, let's take a timeout. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Dubs OT with JD. Rolling on here. Warriors lose to the Kings, 121-116. We'll continue more in the YouTube chat as well as our sounds of Dubs OT. Some fun with numbers as well as the Warriors fall to 5-4 on the year. Kings beat the Dubs tonight, 121-116, and we're talking about it here on the Sports Leader.
KNBR presents the sounds of Dubs OT.
I can see the headline now. Kerr says Warriors better without Curry.
No class, no balls.
I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here, off the court.
Now here's John Dickinson.
All right, welcome back from Sacramento. Warriors lose to the Kings, 121-116, the final. As we roll on here, our sounds of Dubs OT. We're going to hear from the head coach of the Warriors, Steve Kerr, as we always do. Career night for Will Richard as he goes for 30 in his first career start. We've got some fun with numbers coming up as it relates to Will Richard and a lot of notes on the lineup tonight that the Warriors put out there. I thought it was funny that the Lacob 5 was a nickname. I'm not big into the nicknames, but the Pajemski, Moody, Richard, Kuminga, Quentin Post, the Lacob 5, the two timeline lineup, those were a couple of the names that were coming around earlier when that lineup broke, that it was going to be the group that was going to start the game for the Warriors. But let's get to it here. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. More coming up here on Dubs OT as the Warriors lose this one to the Sacramento Kings. All right, let's get to it. Our sounds at Dubs OT. We'll start with the head coach, Steve Kerr, and he is echoing what we talked about earlier as the biggest single key to the Warriors losing this game, despite the fact that they got off to a really strong start.
Well, I thought the game changed with some turnovers mid-second quarter. Probably should have gone into halftime with a 12-point lead. Instead, it's 5, I think. And we're trying to do too much. We're trying to create too much when there's nothing there. And in the end, the story of the game was the turnovers. It's 30-11 points off turnovers. And it's a great lesson for our young guys. It's hard to win in this league. Every possession matters. And especially with the pace and the three-point shooting today, you turn the ball over with a careless play, it's automatically a layup or a 3 at the other end, and the whole momentum shifts. And so it takes a lot of discipline to play 48 minutes and keep making the right play over and over again. And so I love the effort tonight, but I thought we got a little too ambitious, and that led to some turnovers that really hurt us.
Yeah, no, it definitely did. And again, I thought, the Warriors were just kind of hitting singles early and just making the right play and sharing the ball. And then as the game went on, I do think they were trying to make a little bit too much happen. And, to the point on comebacks and wild swings in a lot of these games, truly the turnovers are the quickest way to flip a game. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, it looked like the Warriors were going to wind up having a pretty good turnover night. They ended up with 18 turnovers, and we talked about the difference in terms of points off, and 30-11 in favor of the Kings. But the Kings had a bunch of turnovers in the first quarter, and they wound up not having as many turnovers as the Warriors did for the game. I think they had 7 or 8. I think they had 8 in the first quarter. They had 8 for the final 3 quarters. So their offense also got a lot more comfortable as the game went on. Only 25 points in that first quarter for Sacramento, and then they go 32, 35, and 29 over the final 3. So they're over 90 in those final 3 quarters combined, and actually even pushing 100 in the final 3 quarters combined. They were at 97 for the final 3 quarters combined. And a big part of that was the fact that they were getting shots, and they were also getting to the free throw line. So the turnovers, a big story there. Another one from Steve Kerr. Is Steve Kerr worried about Al Horford? Is Steve Kerr as worried about Al Horford as everyone in the YouTube chat and on the Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line and on the phone lines and listening around the Bay Area or watching on YouTube? Well, here's Steve Kerr's answer. Are you worried about Al Horford, Steve?
Just got to keep playing. I thought Al played a great basketball game tonight. The ball didn't go in. He took all the right shots. They all look good. They're going to go in. He's Al Horford. We know what kind of shooter he is. His presence defensively, his rebounding. He's a hell of a player. It's just slow start for him, to be expected, honestly, when you go to a new team. And, I'm not worried about Al at all.
All right, not worried about Al at all. Kerr staying consistent. At what point is it fair to be worried about Al Horford? I think we are to that point. Steve, he's Al Horford Kerr, according to Robert Brown. No, that's exactly right. I also wanted to jump in, pop up Andis Brown, who said Kerr thought they lost in the second with the turnovers. I thought they lost the game more in the third quarter. I agree with you, Andis, but I think the point that Steve was making was the fact that the turnover problem started toward the end of the second quarter. I agree with Steve on that point. My big takeaway at halftime was that the Warriors should have been up double digits and weren't. And that was the first tell for me that they were in some trouble in this game. The fact that it was at that point 62-57, 5-point game. I thought the level at which the Warriors had played up until the final couple of minutes of the second quarter deemed that they should be ahead by double digits. And when they weren't, I thought, because the Kings do, even with a couple of guys out, have a propensity to be able to put points on the board. And you look up at the end of the night and they wind up with 64 in the second half. They outscore the Warriors 64-54 in that second half. So from down 5, they wind up winning the game by 5. Yeah, the third quarter was the ugly quarter with the turnovers. But the turnover issues, I thought, really started for the Dubs in the second quarter, and it's why the game was closer than it probably should have been for as well as the Warriors had played for about the first 20 minutes or so of the game tonight, when they were really, moving the ball all around and making a lot of things happen. All right, let's hear about one of the bright spots tonight. We've heard about the negative tonight. Let's hear about one of the bright spots, and that was Will Richard. Here is Steve Kerr on Will Richard's 30-point effort in his first career start.
Man, Will was amazing. This guy from the beginning of camp has shown he's an NBA player, and the experience, the poise. He doesn't turn it over. He makes the right play. He can handle the ball under pressure. He makes the right pass. This guy's a hell of a player.
Hell of a player. Defensively at times he's looked good. Defensively at times he has. There have been some issues keeping his man in front of him. I think at different points. But yeah, he is just steady as they come, and he is the kind of player. Him and Moody again are just in some form just look like the perfect kind of players that you want to have out on the floor with Steph and Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green. The guys that can defend, that can just calmly make the right play, whether it's take the right shot, whether it's continue to move the basketball, whether it's defend, and point of attack defense in particular has been something with Moses Moody. But I think when you look at both of those guys, and Moody's going to get there. I think the only reason Moody hasn't been playing more is the fact that he's still just coming back from the injury and trying to shake off the rust and find a little bit of consistency. This is 2 excellent games in a row for Moses. Moses Moody's going to play a lot. Moses Moody's going to play a lot. And I think Moses Moody in some form is going to eventually become a starter for the Warriors. I think he's too good not to. I don't know what the position is going to be. We keep throwing it around. There is an imbalance for the Warriors, as we've talked about a lot, with respect to, if Steph's out there, Jimmy's out there, Draymond's out there, so you have 2 other starters, and if you don't want to play Draymond at the center, then one of those other 2 starters has to be a big, and if one of those other 2 starters is a big, then that means you only have 1 spot left, and you're starting somebody potentially instead of Kuminga. And so it's not, or you're starting small and you're keeping Kuminga out there, and then you have a pathway, but you can't have it always. Like, there's a lot of Warrior fans that want Moody to play and they want him to play a big lineup, and that just doesn't work. And that is, you can't start Moody and play the big lineup. You can't, because then, and again, unless you're cool with Kuminga coming off the bench, which I do think was something that was probably in the original plan, But as Steve Kerr mentioned, within the last week, it's not really something that's in the plans, at least at this particular point in time. And the reason it's not is because Kuminga's earned it. So in some ways, you have this imbalanced roster that's not where you want. But then in other ways, you have multiple players that are small, more effective in the small ball lineups that can't get out there, because the best way to get both of them out there is to not play a big. So it's all interconnected. It's not as simple as just play Moody and Richard over Podziemski. Everybody thinks it is. But again, as I've said a lot, Podziemski, you can tell me Moody's playing over Podziemski. That's fine. You can, but then you're starting small or you're not starting Kuminga. Simple as that. And so, then that creates its own set of potential issues to move forward. But the bottom line is the best players and the most steady players are going to find their way onto the court. And Moses Moody and Will Richard are extremely easy players to be able to get out on the court with guys like Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green. Like you could play both. You could play that five. You could play Steph with Moody and Richard and Jimmy and Draymond. That could be a small ball potential closing lineup at some point, with a couple of 3-and-D guards and Steph and Jimmy's playmaking and Draymond's ability to do what Draymond does. But again, in that particular scenario, you have to be committed to the smaller ball type of a lineup there. All right, let's hear from the man himself, Will Richard. First start, he goes for 30. Here is Will Richard discussing what he thought he learned in his first NBA start.
Yeah, I feel like with the more amount of minutes, you got to stay locked in. I feel like I had some couple of plays where I had defensive lapses, missed some box outs, let guys cut. And I feel like the more you play, the more you got to focus in, just because that fatigue factor. So I'll say that's what I learned from it.
So fatigue factor in terms of maybe some of the defensive lapses tonight for Will Richard, but that is something that I think will be learned. He has the length, he has the wingspan, he has the physical tools, I think, to be an elite defender. That is what he projected to be coming out of college and playing at Florida, somebody that could be that. Maybe a little on the smaller side in terms of height, but has a wingspan that makes up for the height. So, and he plays up. He's 6'4", but he plays up. I think plays bigger than that, and so he's got a little bit of that positional versatility up and down, basically the 2, 3, 4 spots, or the 1, 2, 3, 4 spots. But yeah, all in all, I mean, the question mark around Will Richard is, would he knock down the outside shot at the NBA level? And to this point, he has done that. And if he can do that, he's somebody that you are going to want to play a lot throughout the course of even his rookie season. That, to me, is the number one takeaway from tonight, is that Will Richard, and I think we already knew this, but he is somebody that Steve Kerr can trust almost in any lineup to be out there and be steady and be able to play with a number of different other lineup combinations. All right, let's hear one more tonight. Jonathan Kuminga was at the podium inside Golden One Center following this one. Here is JK taking responsibility for some of the foul trouble, which I think led to an overall more uneven night than it looked like it was going to be for Kuminga, who really, I thought, started the game out playing well. But here's JK on the turnovers and the fouls.
I think he just messed up the momentum of certain things we had going. And I'm not going to blame, the referees or any of that. But, there's certain fouls that sometimes I don't think I was fouling. But I think just me fouling, it kind of took the momentum out of the team. And that's my fault. But, just got to make sure we don't foul, because fouling just kind of stopping us from what we're trying to accomplish and how we're trying to play.
Yeah, the fouls and the turnovers. The turnovers and the fouls. I mean, the turnovers, again, we've talked about it a ton, the 30 to 11 points off the turnovers, but the fouling is what I thought stabilized the game for the Kings and allowed the Kings offense to really get rolling to a point where even though the Warriors were hanging in the game, the Kings had enough momentum to where you could see they were going to, whether it was DeRozan or Schroeder or Monk or Westbrook, like all of those guys by the end of the third quarter were playing well enough to where you thought any one of them could come up with a big shot or a big play offensively to be able to keep the Warriors at bay down the stretch. But I think that momentum was built in large part because of the turnovers and in large part because of the fouls. The fouls and turnovers, the story of this game to the negative, and it doesn't matter. I don't think there was anything tonight that was super egregious as it related to the fouls along those lines. So good stuff from Jonathan Kuminga, good stuff from Will Richard, and as always, good stuff from the head coach of the Warriors, Steve Kerr, following this one. Kyle, let's take one more timeout. We got started a little bit late tonight, after closer to 9:40 than 9:30. So I want to sneak one more quick timeout in. We'll come back and we'll do a little bit of an extended version of Kyle's Clicks here to wrap up the night as the Warriors get beat by the Kings in Sacramento. We will also do some fun with numbers, a lot of interesting nuggets as the Warriors dip to 5-4, heading to play the Nuggets in Denver coming up on Friday. So we'll set the table for that as well as Dubs OT with JD rolls on right here on the Sports Leader.
Dub Nation, this is the real and inside story on Warriors basketball. Dubs OT with John Dickinson continues. Streaming live at twitch.tv/The Sports Leader.
All right, final segment. Warriors lose 121-116 in Sacramento to the Kings. Fun with numbers coming up in just a moment, and we'll continue on. I mean, tonight is a game where, yes, no Steph Curry, no Jimmy Butler, no Draymond Green, but it's also one of the games that on paper, if the Warriors were close to or at full strength, even if the Kings were closer to or at full strength, would be a game that you'd think the Warriors could pencil in as a victory. They do not get this one tonight in Sacramento, so their record does dip to 5-4. And we talked about the 10 of 12 on the road here, beginning with the game last night at home against Phoenix. And so the Warriors now 1-1 through that stretch. They'll head to Denver. They've got one home game against Indiana, which is a game that really needs to be a win, regardless of what happens Friday in Denver. And then the schedule is going to get really tough with a couple of games in San Antonio, preceded by a game in Oklahoma City, and the first real long road trip of the season, a 6-game road trip, which the Warriors will embark on beginning after the game at Chase Center on Sunday against the Indiana Pacers. So we'll continue there. Let's go back to Kyle's Clicks here to kind of wrap up the night. A lot of different things to get to, but let's try and go rapid fire. We'll do about 10 minutes. Robert Brown, Al is becoming unplayable. I thought it was interesting what Steve Kerr said in his explanation of not being concerned still about Al Horford. I thought I will say I agree tonight that I thought Horford, for the most part, played a pretty good floor game, that the shots just didn't fall. Tonight's the first game where I thought it was more in line with that than the fact that he was getting overwhelmed in other areas, in particular defensively or looking slow or anything like that. But the reality is the number one reason Al Horford's on the team is to hit three-point shots. And so at this point, again, it's not like the Warriors are overplaying him in terms of minutes. They're not playing him in back-to-backs. He did end up over 20 tonight. He ended up at 26, and I thought he was going to wind up, if the Warriors were going to finish with a center, he was the guy among the three centers with Quentin Post and Trace Jackson-Davis who played the best, which, again, I mean, that says something in and of itself when the center that you think clearly played the best and should close the game is a guy who ended up 0 for 8 with no points. That's pretty telling about what you got from your center position on this particular night, but it is the truth. Mickey D ordered myself a Will Richard jersey. I'm guessing Mickey D's not alone in that one tonight, ordering up a number 3 Dubs Will Richard jersey. He looks like a true keeper early in the year, and I think we could have said that even before tonight, given the fact that, and I noticed it even in the preseason, the way that he was playing in the preseason, you could tell that he was going to be an immediate favorite of Steve Kerr's. And so much so that it got to the point in the lead up to the opener in LA and Moses Moody, when it became more and more clear that Moody was not going to start the year, I think Will Richard was getting some consideration to be a starter even on opening night. Now, Kuminga wound up being the right call, and Kuminga had earned it as well with the preseason that he had and doing the things that the Warriors wanted. But it was, you could kind of tell the way Kerr was talking about Will Richard, it went from, yeah, Will's a guy that's probably not going to play a lot, in the first half of the season, to Will Richard can play, and he's been super impressive and is going to be somebody that's going to be hard to keep off the court for the Warriors. So he is truly a find, and I think somebody that is going to help the Warriors this season in terms of the steadying influence, solid, can play with anybody guys, to me, are Moody in no particular order. Richard, Al Horford should be one of those guys, honestly. I think when you sign Al Horford, he's one of those guys. Melton, is another one of those guys that when he comes back, it's just, guys that in different combinations can basically play with Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond, and guys that play beyond their years, I think, as well, and can do a little bit of everything: shoot the ball, defend, keep it moving within the context of the offense, and players who also are smarter players. So, I think that's a key, and a lot of people are going to be buying Will Richard jerseys. Rebel to Sounds, given the type of game Moody was having, the offense needed to go through him to close out this game. Yeah, that's a little easier said than done. I think when you've got basically a guard or a wing that's a spot-up shooter. I mean, Moody's greatest offensive skill is spot-up shooting. So are you going to run? But it's also spot-up shooting off of ball movement. It's not like you're running Moses Moody off a bunch of pin downs or running Moses Moody off of a bunch of plays like a la Klay Thompson, where he's coming off all these screens to get these looks on the move from 3-point range. Like, Moody's the kind of guy that almost has to get it just in the context of the ball being in other people's hands and the defense drawing some attention, which allows for some kicks to Moody to be able to knock down open shots. So he, to me, as good as he is in his role, is not the type of offensive player that you necessarily are going to, but more the type of offensive player that you want to make sure you can find in the context of everything else that you're trying to do. Moving on here from Rebel to Sounds, we go to Mickey D. Again, Horford got out-rebounded by Westbrook. Well, he's not the first big to get out-rebounded in his career by Russell Westbrook. I'll say that. Although Westbrook, my God, you look at his night tonight. I mean, 23, 16 rebounds for Russell Westbrook. I mean, the only double-digit rebounder on the court tonight was Russell Westbrook, who ends up with 16 boards, 4 offensive rebounds. And again, when the key for Westbrook, I mean, he's an all-timer in terms of triple-doubles, but when he's doing it efficiently, and tonight he did, 13 shots, 9 of 13, 3 of 4 from 3, when he's able to do that and somewhat limit turnovers, he still had 3 turnovers, he is a player that still can impact games. And I know there's been a lot of discussion, myself included, about how impactful is Russ at this point toward winning. The one thing I will say, and I've said it on this show, I'm not one of the I'm not a Russell Westbrook hater at all. I've always actually kind of liked Russell Westbrook. Imperfect player in a lot of ways, but if you've watched Russell Westbrook the last couple of years, there are games where he really hurts you, but there are also games he really helps you. Like he has not been an all or he has kind of been an all or nothing type of a player night to night. He has not been a player that's just a consistently losing player. It's like some nights he might really help you, some nights he might be really terrible. And tonight was one of those games where he was really, really, really strong and on point, and again helped along with Schroeder down the stretch, and DeRozan eventually, and Malik Monk helped the Warriors or helped the Kings beat the Warriors. Warriors continuing to pay no cap 757 for their sins, trading Jordan Poole away. He would have won this game tonight. Why couldn't big mouth White Otani, talking about Brandon Pajemski, carry them? Brandon Pajemski's not a carrier. Brandon Pajemski, and that is the one thing that, was Jordan Poole a carrier? In 2022, he was. In fairness, in 2022, he was. He started in the Klay Thompson spot. He started in the Steph Curry spot, and the Warriors won games with him in both of those spots. There were games where it was him and Klay. There were games where it was him and Steph. And they were able to win a lot of those games. That was not the Jordan Poole after the punch. Should they have forced that to work? I mean, we're not going to go through and relitigate that on November 5th, 2025. And the money, I think, was something that was going to be concerning even after they had given him the contract. So it's not a question of Pajemski versus Jordan Poole. That being said, Pajemski's not a carrier. Kuminga's not a carrier. Like, and again, two different positions. None of the Warriors' young players are carriers. Like, none of them are. And, you know, Pajemski, I will say, you know, if he truly believes he's a carrier, then that's a problem. But, and, you know, we'll see what player he ultimately becomes. But, and I had a feeling there was going to be a lot of Pajemski. Like, Pajemski was not terrible tonight. He wasn't. Like, he was not terrible tonight. Too many turnovers. 4. Didn't, you know, took some of those in between shots, but the guy was 14, 9, and 9 tonight. And he was a plus 14, by the way. Who led the Warriors in plus minus tonight? You want to guess, Kyle, or do you already know? Who led the Warriors in plus minus tonight? It was Brandon Pajemski, plus 14. Brandon Pajemski, plus 14. 14, 9, and 9. Darn near has a triple-double, leads the team in plus minus, and there are many people out there acting like he was the worst player on the court and the primary reason the Warriors lost tonight. I think Brandon Pajemski was probably the Warriors. And look, he was probably the Warriors' third best player tonight on the court after Moody and Will Richard, or Will Richard and Moody, however you want to. I think Moody was the best player on the floor tonight for the Warriors, and then I would say Will Richard, and then it's, you know, Kuminga had 24 and 9 and 3. So if you want to say it was Kuminga over Pajemski, I guess I won't argue with you. And Kuminga was not a negative tonight. He was a plus 2, and maybe the plus minus numbers for Kuminga are better if he's able to stay on the floor and out of foul trouble. So yeah, if you want to say Kuminga, Pajemski, Kuminga, we can go back and forth. I'm not gonna really quibble with any of that, but Pajemski was not one of the worst players on the floor tonight for the Warriors. In fact, not even close, on a night where Horford and Post and Gee and Buddy Hield and Pat Spencer and GP2 was pretty terrible tonight. Like, you know, I get it. Pajemski probably outkicks his coverage in terms of the way he talks, and he's had some quotes that are not great, but he is not and has not been one of the Warriors' worst players top to bottom to begin the year. If anything, he's actually played pretty well here the last week and a half, top to bottom. LM, I think Moody eventually will play over JK later in the year. His shooting creates better spacing with Dre and Butler. I'm with you, LM. And again, it goes back for me to the lineup that the Warriors finished last year with. They have not deployed the lineup that was the group that played the most part in the 23-8 finish to the year. And again, it's partly because Moody was hurt. It's partly because Kuminga's played well. But I think the one thing we're also finding about this Warriors team is how, as well as certain players are playing in different roles, how much of it ultimately impacts winning. So it would not surprise me in the least if Moody eventually plays over Kuminga in the starting lineup at some point in the year. And I agree. I think the shooting is what the game changer is. Again, I also think you could play Moody with Steph, Jimmy, Kuminga, and Draymond if you are willing to go with a small ball lineup and want to bring Pajemski off the bench. But I will see if they end up getting back to that lineup. But the Warriors' best lineup since the Jimmy Butler trade back in February is Steph, Pajemski, Moody, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green. That is still, without question, their best 5-player group since February when that trade was made. All right, let's get a couple of more here before we do fun with numbers. Bennett Roth, Warriors now 0-24 when the opponent rests their starters and usual starters. Yeah, does tonight count? I think it. I don't think tonight counts when the Warriors don't have the big three. But I did think it was interesting when the Kings throughout the afternoon, and both teams were kind of doing it. It was, oh, now Sabonis is out. Now Levine's out. Oh, now Draymond's out. Now Jimmy's officially out. It felt like both teams were kind of going back and forth, announcing every hour which guys were not going to be able to play. I actually thought, and people are going to say I'm crazy, when Sabonis and Levine went out, I actually thought this game got tougher for the Warriors because Sabonis and Levine are two players that can be attacked. Like, teams can look at both of them because they're both pretty terrible defenders. And if they're on the court, you can really attack them. And look, the Warriors got nothing from the center spot. And Sabonis, even on his bad games, can be 10 and 10 on a bad game. So I'm not sure how that would have played out given the way the centers ended up playing for the Warriors. But I actually thought no Levine, no Sabonis, because those are two more of the more attackable. But the Kings at any given time can have four guys out there on the court that really can be attacked defensively. It's why they're so bad defensively when they're whole, to where they put a little bit more resistance and a little bit more energy on the court when they don't have a couple of those guys. So I actually think in a weird way that worked to the Sacramento's advantage for tonight, and tonight only, not having those two guys out there. But yeah, the Warriors without other team stars, it's just not happening. How many more we got, Kyle? What's a good number for you? You want to do two more?
Yeah,
more?
I was about to say let's do one more, and then we'll do the comment of the night.
All right, let's do one more here before our comment of the night. San Jose Jazz fan 8. Okay, I was embarrassed for Pat getting blown by Schroeder, getting blown by Schroeder, but can somebody please box out Westbrook? Huh? Yeah, Westbrook was all over the boards tonight. And yeah, Pat Spencer had a rough night. Pat Spencer had a rough night for the Warriors. You look at some of the plus minus numbers and the defense. Pat Spencer was a game worst at minus 19. The plus minus leaders tonight for the Warriors, their top plus minus, we talked about it, Pajemski, number 2, Moody, number 3, ended up being Quentin Post, which is odd in his 15 minutes, and then Kuminga and Will Richards. So it was a lot of the guys that were out there at the start. All right, let's get to it. Our comment of the night.
Now, time for the Dubs OT comment of the night.
All right, Pat H, 23, 16, and 10 for Russ is a whole month for Horford. Yeah, I'm not going to do the math on that, but it's probably pretty close. It's probably pretty close to, let's say, the first couple of weeks for Big Al with the Golden State Warriors. I'm not going to do that math. Maybe we'll get that math for you between now and Friday when we reconvene after the Nuggets game, and I'll have some numbers for you on that. But yeah, for Russ, he was spectacular tonight and impacted winning in a big way. And again, he's got that in his bag from time to time. Now again, he may be the big reason you lose the game in your next game, but again, he's one of those guys that definitely, when he's on, can still, even at his advancing age, can still on a given night kind of put you away. And he was part of that story for Sacramento. All right, let's close it out with some fun with numbers.
This is Dubs OT with JD. Time now for fun.
I'm a fun guy.
With numbers.
No, I'm just having fun.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
All right, second game of the back-to-back for the Warriors. So the Warriors now 5-4 overall, and in the second of back-to-backs, it was the third set of back-to-backs. So the Warriors now are 1-2 in the second of a back-to-back on the season. You look at the Warriors in the first of the back-to-backs. The Warriors are 3-0 in the first game of back-to-backs. They're 1-2 in the second game of back-to-backs, second split of back-to-backs for the Warriors here to begin the season. The Kings have won that note's not right. I was looking at this note here. It says the Kings have won the last 3 regular season meetings against the Warriors. Now the Warriors won the last couple against the Kings to close out last year after the Jimmy Butler trade. But the Kings do get the advantage. The next meeting is at Chase Center on January 9th of 2026. with the Warriors going at it against Sacramento. These two teams will play 3 more times at minimum. 4th clutch game for the Warriors. Is this a thing? I mean, tonight you kind of throw out, but the 4th clutch game for the Dubs, and the Warriors are now 1-3 in clutch games. They've beaten Denver in clutch games. They've dropped the other 3. Interesting note pregame, the last time the Warriors started 5 players with no player having more than 4 years NBA experience, April 26, 2012, it was the last game of a 66-game lockout shortened season in the 2011-2012 season. It was the final game of that year. Warriors played San Antonio, and 5 rookies started for the Warriors on that night at Oracle. And it was Chris Wright, Jeremy Taylor, Mikal Gladness, Klay Thompson, and Charles Jenkins were the 5 rookies who started for the Warriors the last time they had a lineup anything close to the lineup that the Warriors put out there on the floor tonight. The Warriors are playing Denver on Friday, and the Warriors beat the Nuggets in overtime going back a couple of weeks ago in that thriller, the home opener at Chase Center on that night. Will Richard tonight, first career start, career high 30 points, 7 boards, 3 assists, and a steal in 34 minutes. It's the second most by a player in their first career NBA start. For the Warriors, the number 1 all-time NBA start for the Warriors, Anthony Morrow, had 37 in 2008 in his first career NBA start. That the most ever for a Warriors player. Will Richard made the 5 3-pointers tonight, most by a player in their first NBA start with the Warriors, and that equaled Michael Mulder and Justin Holiday, who both did it. Mulder in 2020, Justin Holiday did it back in 2015 as well. Moses Moody, 28 season high for him, 24 and 28 for Moody in each of the last 2 games. So it's the second time Moody has scored at least 20 points in 2 straight games. He also tied a career high with 6 3-point makes going back to February of 2022 in the championship season against San Antonio. And Jonathan Kuminga, nice night in terms of the counting stats for Kuminga, 24, 9 boards. He's grabbed at least 5 boards in every game this season, which is impressive and should be noted. And Kuminga ended up, as we talked about, with 3 assists as well. The turnover is a problem, but all in all, Kuminga playing well to continue to start the season. And the Warriors, we touched on this last night, 1-4 on the road now. 1-4 on the road, 4-0 at home. Warriors are going to have to pick it up on the road, and it's not going to get any easier on Friday with the Warriors going at it in Denver against the Nuggets. And hopefully Steph Curry's healthy, although I will say there was a little hint of, with Steve saying before the game, the hope is that Steph in the next few days is healthier. I guess the big topic pregame, by the way, just to pass this along, is that Steph was not doing as well today as he even was last night. Like that things had kind of worsened in terms of the illness. And so he had been ruled out last night, and things were so today. And, anytime you deal with an illness, sometimes you think you're turning the corner and you're not quite yet turning the corner. So I do think that would put Steph at a minimum to be questionable for the game against Denver. And let's be honest, if you're under the weather and dealing with illness and you're, coughing and sniffling and those kinds of things, going up and playing at altitude is not really something that helps you in that kind of a way. So we shall see if Steph's going to be available to play against Denver. Draymond Green should be back. We'll see about Jimmy Butler with the back that kept him out tonight. But Warriors and the Nuggets coming up on Friday. All right, that's going to do it. Big thanks to Kyle Haar back in our San Francisco studios. Big thanks to Austin Scott, who joined me on the digital side here from Sacramento tonight. And Ryan McCarthy in our San Francisco studios tonight as well? Anybody I'm forgetting, Kyle?
No Ryan tonight. It was Cole and Jordan.
You know what?
It was Ryan yesterday. Ryan yesterday.
I apologize. For some reason, I was looking at the email because we get the email with the cut sheet on it. And for some reason, in my mind, I thought it said Ryan McCarthy. It was actually Cole Appel. So yeah, big thanks to Cole for, I've tried to figure out who the cut sheet email is. That tells me one of the cutters. I always like to make sure I'm not forgetting somebody, but it was Cole tonight as I look back at the email. So yeah, Cole Appel. Jordan Pertari, we appreciate both of them. And, of course, Kyle holding it down in our San Francisco studios. Kyle, let's do this again on Friday. What do you say?
I'm down. Friday and Sunday. We will be there.
Friday and Sunday. Looking forward to it. Even post 49er game on Sunday, we'll be having a little Dubs OT after the Warriors take on the Nuggets inside Chase Center. So thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks to the callers. Thanks to the texters. Make sure you like and subscribe the KNBR YouTube page. You'll get the notifications as to when we're going to start the show and our officially live can go right to your phone. So make sure you're doing all of that. If you prefer to listen back the next day, wherever you get your podcasts, we podcast the show as well. We'll talk to you Friday. Warriors lose to the Kings 121-116. They are 5-4, and we will be all over it immediately following the Dubs and the Nuggets from Denver on Friday. We'll talk to you then right here. Dubs OT with JD on the Sports Leader. John Dickinson.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
Big audio quality show.
You are a sicko. And I appreciate you for it because I'm a sicko.
I just know they kicked our ass tonight.
No class, no balls.
Everything's gonna be all right.